Welcome, guys, to another episode on the Courtside Investor podcast. I'm your host, the Card Boss, and today we're discussing auctions. Okay, and so the question I have for you guys is: how many of you have heard this before? I always lose money with auctions. Auctions is risky. Auctions is uncertain. I'm very afraid of auctions, right? Because I don't know whether or not will I profit or will I lose money. And those are all very valid concerns. But in this video, I'm going to discuss about some little, tips and tricks that you can actually use to profit consistently on auctions. Okay, and the key word I want to stress here is consistent. Okay, so let's dive straight into it. The very first point, okay, is to understand the difference between the three different online selling methods, which is buy now, and then best offer, as well as auctions now. Buy now, which is basically fixed price. You put a price, and then if somebody wants to accept the price, that's it, straight up. Next one, best offer. Likely you mark it out a bit higher, maybe 20%, and then you go through a back and forth negotiation. And finally, auctions. You pass it to an auction house, or maybe you give it to a consignment house, such as Popes or DC Sports, and then you let it ride. Okay. Now, the key differences between fixed price, offer, and auction is the element of control that you have as a seller. So obviously, when it comes to fixed price and best offer, you as a seller, you have a lot of control. You determine on the final outcome. If it's the price that you don't like, if the buyers are giving you an offer that you don't like, or you're not going to make any money out of it, you don't accept the offer. So a lot of control is in your hands. Whereas with auctions, there is no control. It all depends on the market to decide on whether or not you are going to make money. And that's very, very scary. But if that's the case, why are so many cars going to auction? Okay, obviously there's something that's going on there, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, and how people such as myself, okay, can actually make profit consistently via auctions. So first and foremost, it all depends on the card itself. Now, Rolf Cars used to say, right, the profit in selling a card starts from the moment you buy the card, and which is very true. Okay, when I say that you don't have any element of control when you sell the card, but you do have a lot of element of control when you buy the card. So buying the card at the right price makes a lot of difference. Pretty obvious, right? In general, people say, "Oh, you buy 70% comps or 80% comps." Yes, those are the easy ones, but not everything you get to buy at that rate. Certainly, you need to factor in, if possible, buying at below comps, or you may have to take into consideration where you see the market is going with that particular card, where you see the potential or upside. So lots of external factors to consider when selecting the card, the player as well, the set, the condition of the card, the grade. So the kind of card is very important, all right? So it's not every single card can do well in auction. Again, it depends on the player, it depends on the condition of the card, okay, it depends on what kind of demand is it, etc., etc. So the kind of card is the most important factor. Second one, timing. Now, it used to be when people said, put your cards on auction that ends on Sunday night, because typically that's when everybody is. So when you go on eBay, you see lots and lots of listings ending on Sunday. Too much to the point whereby everybody puts cards on Sunday night, and then there's super oversaturation. And therefore, you see some of the other auction houses actually ends the auction on different days. Like, for example, All and Goldin ends on Thursday. Some even like MC Sports ends their auctions on Mondays. So people are spreading things out. Okay, so the old saying that choose a timing that ends on a Sunday night is actually not true. But having a fixed, consistent end date is very important. So, and that I'm going to touch about that in the very next point, which is, where do you sell the cars now? Of course, you can sell between your choice between eBay, or Finesse Collect, and Goldin. So, but one of the key differences between selling different platforms, obviously, is the price or the value of the card. Typically, if anything that's below $1,000, and maybe Raw, for example, would do better on eBay compared to anywhere else. But anything above $1,000, you have a free shot, depending on whether or not you want to sell an alt, you want to sell in Finesse Collect, and maybe something that's above $10,000, you may want to consider Goldin. Okay, but then again, not necessarily. This is a hard and fast rule that you start segregating your cards into different platforms. Not necessarily the case, but it will be important that when you look at your portfolio of cards, and if you feel more comfortable selling in a particular platform, you kind of skew your bias towards selling on that platform, which is typically what I've been doing in the past 1 year or so, whereby I was very focused on selling on Finance Collect. I typically know what kind of cars that do generally better on Finance Collect compared to anywhere else. So my buying was skewed towards that. And that's typically what you should be doing. So if your game is to sell cards, raw cards that's between, let's say, $50 to $250, for example. So typically, the only two platforms that allow selling raw cards at the moment is Finance Collect and eBay. So eBay will be better because I think that's where most people hunt for raw cards. So generally, you want to put your stuff on eBay. But if you're going for a greater cards that's $2,500, let's say 2,500 to 5,000, you got to be more options with it. You definitely can go eBay, or you can consider all the other options as well. But one thing that leads back to the earlier point that I mentioned was timing. Okay, so with eBay, you have a choice to determine when you're going to list auction. That's a very critical decision for you to make. So obviously, people say, let's put it on Sunday night. But I do think that actually, again, doesn't really hold true anymore, that you should list everything on Sunday night. It's a very general statement. I would prefer a consistent end date like what the other auction houses are doing. Like, for example, Alt has it on Thursday night. Goldin has it on Thursday night. Finance Collect is Sunday night, but these auction house people are very well aware that all the listings are ending on that particular date. So say, for example, if right now, I'm listing all my cards on Alt. So everybody who knows, everybody is aware that auctions ends on Thursday night. So probably, let's say like Tuesday or Wednesday, they start scouring through the entire listing of all the auctions. Whereas on eBay, there is auctions running every single day, right? You may end on Sunday, but some people may feel that, look, I'm only free. I'm this currently on a Tuesday. I'm just going to check out cards that's going to end the next day or the day after, which ends on Wednesday or Thursday. And chances are you may actually miss out on your card. But if you choose a platform like the Finance Collect or Goldin, people know when exactly these auctions are ending and therefore knows the timing of these auctions, and therefore you have a better visibility of your cards. Then again, like I mentioned, depends on the card itself that you choose. So we've covered that if you choose the right card, you choose the right platform, and then because of the platform has the timing, consistent timing, you have very strong visibility of your cards, especially if you chose the correct card, which increases the chances for your card to do a lot better than usual. I think there are a lot of issues that people used to tell me is, I don't get as many views, or I don't get as many bids, for example. It's just because of all these reasons, right? You're listing your cards on the wrong platform and ending at the wrong time. Sunday night is the wrong time, but it could be for some people who don't actually check out cards on Sunday night. So if you feel that your card will do better on Finance Collect compared to eBay, for example, okay, put it on Finance Collect, because even it's consistent Sunday night weekly auction. So people would know that whatever it is, I have all these things I can see ending on the same time. Right, you won't have it ending randomly at 7 p.m. Eastern, or 7:45 or something along those lines. Everybody's ending at 10 p.m. So consistent timing, everybody's aware, better visibility. Okay. The last point I talk about is the financial numbers, which is number one thing, cost of selling, the fees. Okay. So a lot of people get burned and lose money is because of fees. Now, I'm not saying choosing one over the other. Every of these auction houses has a different fee structure, is to find out what works best for you. So like I mentioned, like eBay, okay? eBay always prides itself for being the biggest marketplace. It still is the biggest marketplace. It has the most set of eyeballs to look at your cards. And obviously the fees are the most expensive. Now, I'm not just talking about the listing fees or the final value fees. There is also the payment fees, right? So if you're using, like, for example, if I'm from Malaysia, I used to sell on eBay, I not only have to pay that 14 to 15% of eBay fees, I will still need to pay another 2 to 3% of the payment gateway fees, which is the Payoneer fees, and only I get taken out 17% of the total value. Okay. So of course, different auction houses, other houses such as, for example, Finance Collect and all, for example, okay, they would have a percentage, a seller bonus on top of the hammer price, because they do charge a 20% buyer's premium on top. Some ranges as a start could be 100% on the hammer, could be 105, 110, or if in the case of, like my case, okay, going on the black tier, or in the case of platinum tier for Finance Collect, it's 115% over the total hammer price, okay, which effectively, if you work backwards, is 4.8%, roughly PayPal goods and services fee, which is awesome. And that's the final fee. Okay. There is no other hidden payment gateway fee, extra international fee that eBay has, and things like that. That's the final amount. Get it via ACH to your bank account, no other additional fees. If it's international wire, yep. I believe Finex Collect charges additional $50 per wire. Consolidate your funds and send it via wire at one go. Right. Save a whole bunch from there. So all these little financial things makes all the difference. And people kind of take it for granted, and people just go on, regular transaction and look at how much they get. And that's how they actually lose money. So to recap, by understanding what kind of card you buy or the price that you go in, and of course where you're going to sell the card to, which platform will do better for a certain card, understand the timing of it, and better understand on the fees and how to maximize or in fact minimize the fees. Okay, whether is it through consistently selling one platform, focusing on going up the tier in the case of Finex Collect, or therefore reducing your fees as you progress along the levels. Okay, and then you find yourself also being very focused on the kind of cards that you sell, which fits into the platform that you are selling on. So obviously, Alt has a certain kind of cards that you should be selling. Finex Collect have a certain kind of cards. I mentioned Goldin, more and more higher end stuff. So all of these, if you understand the true concepts behind selling auctions, you would generally do better. Now, I'm not saying that every single auction listing you're going to make money. I lose money on auctions as well. But the point is to win more than you lose. So if you have 10 listings at one go and you made money on 7 of them, assuming that each of the profit amounts are the similar amounts, you're going to be better off, right? Of course, in aggregate, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Some cards are bigger, you make a bit more, or sometimes you lose more on some of the bigger cards. It does happen, okay? But always I stay focused. End of the day, in one auction cycle, every 2 weeks, in the case for myself, okay, if I can do a margins of between 7 to 12% consistently, to me it's a win. And it's all about building revenue. So if you're doing a revenue of, let's say, one auction cycle of $10,000 revenue, okay, if you're earning margins between 7 to 12, that's about $700 to $1,200 of profit. Decent. So if you can scale revenue higher from, let's say, from $10,000 to $100,000 in every cycle, okay, which is a big, even I'm not at that amount, but you're essentially making $7,000 to $12,000 every 2 weeks. Okay, once you get the hang of it. And it's not just on one card, it's a series of cards, it's a basket of cards. And because you've already understand the steps that I mentioned earlier, you can do this every single month consistently. All right, that's it for this one. I hope you guys get something out of it. And do comment. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any of them. Like and subscribe for my channel. Thanks for watching, guys. Till the next one. Cowboys out.